The CMSC Pro-Am Championship Round 9. This is the AM Race 1 in the GR4 cars, brought to you by Mobitel and Sri Lanka Telecom, along with our partners Demo 800. We are in the beautiful seaside sports circuit of Dragon's-Tail. It's a 5.2 kilometer circuit with 17 left-hand and right-hand turns, and this is in Croatia, and one of the cars has had a problem. We'll have to have a look at what the problem is. Who started off in pole, and he's taken off into the sunset. We're having a couple of issues here again on the technical side. and we're back in Croatia for the qualifying session of the CMSC Pro Am Championship round 9, brought to you by Mobitel and Sri Lanka Telecom with our partner Demo 800. As we watch the cars circulate around the track, we have 8 drivers: Dasun Ranatunga, Kevin Pereira, Shamized, Sachetana Patrana, Imesh, Dilan Sabha, Akil Rizni and Adisha Kitwin. So these guys are all running for championship points in the this is the 9th round of the championship. We've been running it over a period of a few months, and we're still in the qualifying stages. We've got about 2.5 minutes to go, and we see Dasun Ranatunga, who's achieved a time of 1 minute 46.086. As we come back, we still see Dasun Ranatunga, closely followed by Kevin Pereira and Shamized, who's now in third, as Dilan Sabha seems to have got some pace out of his car and is now on a hunt for pole. He's just 1/100th of a second off Dasun Ranatunga. A beautiful car, nice and yellow, as we watch Dilan Sabha go down part of Dragon's Tail. A beautiful country, Croatia, just by the sea, as it's a coastal track. Got 17 corners, 5.2 kilometers, lots of left turns, lots of right turns, and Akil Rizni has now done the fastest lap. That's how it is, as Dilan Sabha has been relegated down to 3rd place. So Akil Rizni has got the fastest lap time of 1:45.766. Kevin Pereira in 2nd place in the Mitsubishi Evolution, and Dasun Ranatunga in the Ferrari, beautiful red car. He's running in 3rd, and this is the qualifying. They've got just over a minute of time left in this qualifying session for the AM Race 2. As usual, we have Adisha Kitwith on grid number 1. This is a reverse grid, so Adisha is now starting off from pole. It's 13 lap race, and I presume it's going to be a one-stopper for these boys. So Imesh is going to follow Adisha into the first corner, followed by Sachetana Patirana and Shami said Dasun Ranatunga, Kevin Pereira, Akil Risni and Nilhan Sabha seems to have got pole. That's an amazing feat by Nilhan Sabha as we go into this race, and we ride on board with Imesh Silva as Sachetana Patrana dives down the inside of Shamizet. And there's a bit of argy-bargy going on at the back. It's all clean so far. These boys have really upped their game. It's lovely to see the beautiful cars that are taking part here. The European cars having got the faster lap times around this circuit. And oh, we've got a fast speeding Shamizet. I'm sorry I didn't see what happened there, but I think he clipped a curb and on his own he clipped a curb and he spun. The track is pretty unforgiving. You got to keep it clean. You can't ride the curbs far too much, and if you ride the grass here, you're going to be in trouble. So there you have it. Dasun Ranatunga, we ride on board with him, followed by Kevin Pereira, and Kevin being chased by Akil Risni in the green color Lamborghini. Oops! Kevin Pereira brakes way too late, and you can see it as he goes into the wall. Unfortunately relegated all the way down now to 7th place. The two Mitsubishi Lancers battling tooth and nail there, coming into the first of the chicanes, and the second of the chicanes are very tight as you go over these things. The curb, the rumble strips here reminds you a lot of the casino and the pool down in Monaco. As we ride on board with Kevin Pereira, and Nilhan Sabha, who got pole, is now fighting his way up from 8th grid all the way up now. So we ride on board with Nilhan Sabha. It's a long straight here as we have Akil Risni in the Lamborghini. The cars are pretty evenly spaced out, as you can see. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a small gap to 5, and then goes 6, 7, 8. All the cars are there beautifully around this circuit, as you can see, with the mountains on one side. You can't see the ocean, but trust me, I've seen it a couple of times from a different perspective and a different view. And there you have it. Dasun Ranatunga has caught Imesh Silva, and we are out to see a bit of a battle here. It's a nice long 5.2 kilometer circuit, this CMSC Pro-Am Championship, brought to you by Mobitel and Sri Lanka Telecom. Our race control is here at the Mobitel X station, all the way down on Duplication Road, as we see Dasun Ranatunga diving down the inside, braking quite late, and Imesh Silva trying to go around the outside. It's a bit of a tough one. They run parallel and they are very clean. The two drivers giving space to each. But let's see into the first of the chicanes. Right-hander, who's going to blink first? No, they run parallel. Very nice. But Imesh Silva manages to come out a cropper there, and he comes a little quicker out of the corner, and he takes advantage of that. The four-wheel drive of the Mitsubishi may be a little better than the Ferrari. The Ferrari trying to go down the inside, but let's see down the main straight. When you have a bit of a slipstream, whether he can get the toe out of the corner. Akil Risni runs a little too wide into that last corner, and I'm sure Nilhan Sabha is going to pounce on him with that mistake. So there you have it. The first, second and third as Dasun comes down the inside. It's a nice, beautiful turn. But Imesh is on the inside. He might brake a little later. Yes, he does. They try to run a little wide. There was a little bit of a kiss from both cars as Dasun powers the car and he goes into a slight power slide and maintains his second spot. It's going to be a tough one there. It's going to be a long race. It's 13 laps. We were only down 3 here, and it's interesting to see what exactly we're going to see happening when it comes to closer to the checkered flag. As I saw a little bit of action at the back, let me go down here. Yes, there is Dilan Sabah and Akil Rizni. Let's ride with these two and see whether there's going to be some action. I'm sure Dilan is another driver who's not going to give in very easily. He's going to take these guys on. As Dilan comes all the way up to the exhaust pipe of the Lamborghini, it will be interesting to see who's going to blink first into the chicanes. The Evo seems to have a slight edge here handling around these corners. But let's see. It's a long way more to go. We are still on the third lap on this 5.2 kilometer circuit. Along with me in race control are Sam Hekender and Sabri Salam, as they are keenly watching all these drivers to ensure there is absolutely no contact. Dasun Ranatunga still ahead of Imesh Silva, and Akil Rizni wondering which way the yellow color Evo is going to come. As Dilan Sabah still tailgates the Lamborghini, the Lambo trying to make itself look as wide as it possibly can. I thought I saw a Milo sticker on that car. Am I wrong? Am I right? Not too sure, but maybe I'm wrong. Did I see Milo on it? No, that's okay. All these drivers having sponsors from different companies. Launchpad being the sponsor of Dilan Sabah, I presume. And we ride on board again with Akil Rizni. Akil, I'm told, is in Switzerland. I'm sure he might be running Milo because he may be working for Nestle's. He does work for Nestle's. Yes, I'm told he works for Nestle, so my eyes were not too bad. I did see the Milo, and he's running Milo in respect to the company he works for, which is Nestle's. And yes, there is a Milo on the side of his car. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Akil Rizni seems to be sponsored by Nestle's. And we have, let's ride up a little bit as the cars come into play. We'll ride on board with Akil because these three are going to have a ding-dong battle all the way. And Akil just touches that curb, the Armco barrier there, and that gives Dilan Sabah a little bit of an edge as Akil tries to come down. Yes, he has. He's come down the inside of Imesh. Let's see whether he can hold. Yes, that's a clean pass. Akil, brilliant drive as Dilan Sabah leans a little bit into Imesh, but Imesh has none of it. He's got the line, and because Dilan Sabah was on the inside, his line compromised his exit speed. So let's see what happens there as we ride on board with Akil Rizni again, as the cars behind him are in a furious battle here. I can't really see much action in front because Dasun Ranatunga is holding station, and the gap to Adisha Kitwit has not changed very much. The pit stops are going to happen only in about 2 to 3 laps time, depending on which car you drive and how thirsty the car is. And there you have it. Akil has managed to pull a slight gap from Imesh and Dilan. Dilan still not found the gap to squeeze his car through. Then again, let me tell you that Imesh Silva and Dilan Sabah are driving identical cars at this circuit. So it's actually down to the driver's talent to keep these two cars on track. And we see Dasun Ranatunga now trying to do a dive down the inside of Adisha Kitwit. Yes, he has. And let's see into the chicane who keeps going better. Oh yes, the Ferrari has got the legs on the little Volkswagen, and Dasun has managed to get the better of Adisha Kitwit all the way there. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a clean pass as Adisha Kitwit is now coming up to the penultimate corner. And as we come round that, he sees a Ferrari in front and a Lamborghini behind. That's what you call a right royal sandwich of two supercars there. The mighty Lambo coming all the way up to the back of Adisha, and Adisha beautifully closing the door. Unfortunately, the Lambo cannot make it stick there, and he goes into a slide as we ride on board with Dasun, and we have Adisha, and I think Akil Rizni made a slight error coming out of that corner. He touched the curb too much. I saw the car slip a little bit, and in that little bit of slipping and sliding, Dilhan Sabah has grabbed the opportunity. This is motorsport at its best, as we see Shamika Gamage in his BMW M4 has already gone into the pits for a set of new tires and some fuel, as the Volkswagen tries very hard to stay as broad as it possibly can, as Akil Rizni comes down the inside, says thank you very much, brakes a little later, turns in, and Adisha tries to go around the inside but doesn't really work on a switchback. And there you have it. The cars all running tooth and nail here as Dilhan Sabah gets that car on the curbs, tries to go around Akil Rizni. There's an absolute fight for a position here, braking late into the corner and gets the better of the Volkswagen. So now you have it. You've got a 1-2 with a Ferrari and a Lamborghini. For the Subaru, the Mitsubishi Evolution of Dilhan Sabah now getting the better of the Volkswagen as well. So Adisha Kitwith now running in a very close fourth place. He did not qualify. He started off on pole, and Dilhan Sabah, who actually got pole and started at the back, has fought his way all the way up to third place. Now he must be having his sights set very clearly on the green Lamborghini in front of him, driven by Akil Rizni with the Milo logo on it. So there you have it. We have the Lamborghini now being hounded by the yellow color launch pad Mitsubishi Lancer, driven by Dilhan Sabah. Dilhan trying left, trying right, trying a dummy here, but nothing happening. Akil Rizni is also a very good driver. These top three drivers in this class are in a different league, I would say. They've pulled a tremendous lead from the next bunch of drivers. I have to give it to them. All the drivers in the championship have moved up their skill levels and have really come smelling of roses here, as one would say. As we ride on board with Dilhan Sabah and Akil Rizni, the pressure behind those helmets must be fantastic, as Akil, I'm sure, will have to come into the pits now because his fuel gauge is blinking. Dasun Ranatunga's fuel gauge is blinking, and Dilhan Sabah is in no better state. So all three cars, the top three cars, are going to come in. Imesh Silva will also have to do a similar thing. Adisha Kitwith will also have to do the same. So ideally all cars are running in this class will come in for a pit stop, except for Sachetana Patirana and Shamika Gamage, who already done their pit stops. And we see the drivers all in the pits. They are getting their tires changed. As you see, the Sri Lanka Telecom and Mobitel branding on the car. Beautiful car there. I think there's a Total Oil and a Dhammika Motors on the side of it. I'm told that Imesh Gamage is also one of the he's sponsored by Dhammika Motors as well. So that's a good thing for Sri Lankan motorsport. We have Dhammika Motors, who are sponsors in the real world of motorsport as well. Dhammika Piris and his two sons, Kushan and Mehan, who take part in a lot of the national racing in Sri Lanka for over a decade and a half or more, with Dhammika racing even longer, and Kushan actually taking part in the AM Class 1. So there you have it. Imesh Silva, sponsored by Dhammika Motors in the Mitsubishi Evolution, all the way there. As we ride with the lead trio once again, it's an interesting battle here. It's only half a second which separates 1 and 2, and another half a second which separates 2 and 3. So there you have it. That's the level of motorsport you see here, and the clean driving that you see. I mean, this is something that we need to take on to the real world as well. It's an amazing story here as we ride on board. We're on lap 8 of 13 laps, and we've got unfortunately we've had to run 2 races parallel with each other, and we see all the cars circulating around Dragon's Tail in Croatia, as Dasun Ranatunga has now lost the lead to Akil Rizni, who's taken the lead. And coming to the start finish line, when you look at it from the other side, you see 3 cars running pretty much abreast. That's how close this motorsport has become. We've got 1, 2 and 3 running under half a second. So that's how close the top 3 drivers are. There you have it. That's beautifully done, as Dasun Ranatunga takes the lead again from Akil Rizni. It's a ding-dong battle for the top 3 drivers here, as Dasun Ranatunga manages to pull a slight lead on Akil Rizni, and Dilan Sabah falls back into that last corner. The 3 cars surely couldn't go abreast, and somebody had to come and press the brake a little earlier than the other, and it has been a smart Dilan Sabah sorry, who gone on the brakes a little earlier and said, I'm not going to take a risk here, let the other 2 guys go along, I'll fight the next lap. And that's what's happened. So Dilan Sabah falling back a little bit, Akil Rizni now again on Dasun Ranatunga's tail, as there you have it. AM Race 1 has just finished with Shami Alvis winning the race, and Mevan Pereira followed by Adam Junaid and Sam Smith, along with Emdad Hussain, our novice driver, who coming in 5th place. And I take you back to the AM Race 2 with Dasun Ranatunga still leading the pack, and followed very closely by Akil Rizni. As we go down the pack again, these drivers now falling into a bit of rhythm, and as Adisha Kitwit and Shamika Gama, Imesh Silva still fighting for that 4th place. Kevin Pereira is all by himself, about 4.5 seconds away from 5th place. Imesh Silva is all by himself. I'm sure we'll see the tail enders of Sachetana Patirana and Shamika Gamage, these 2 cars at the back of the pack. I mean, wherever you are in this race, it's all about the fun that you have of overtaking each other cleanly and running like this. So you see the last 2 drivers, although they are last, they are still competing with each other tooth and nail, and for a slot, and every position you have here gains you points for the championship. So wherever you finish, you do get points. If you are the fastest lap time, if you get the fastest lap time for the day, you get lap points as well. So there you have it. Sachetana has managed to get round Shamika Gamage again. Whatever happens, it's a beautiful race here, all the way in Croatia. Again, Shamika Gamage overtakes Sachetana Patirana. There's a bit of a tap there, but no harm. These things do happen. This was not intentional. As we ride on board again, we'll go up the leaderboard back to the top. Dasun Ranatunga still leads Akil Rizni, and the top trio of cars still within a stone's throw from each other as we go into lap 10 of 13. I had to take a slight break. My throat got the better of me. And while I was away, Dasun Ranatunga is still in the lead. And Dilan Sabah passed Akhil Rizvi in a beautiful pass in turn 4 of Dragon's Tail, and is now chasing the front-running Ferrari of Dasun Ranatunga. Akhil Rizvi seems to have fallen back a little bit. Maybe he's had an off somewhere, but he's still in a strong third position. But the gaps between the cars seems to have moved out to an even pace. And there you have it, Dilan Sabah grazing the barriers, trying every little trick he has in his pool of talent to catch the fast-running Dasun Ranatunga. The gap, which was around 1.5 seconds, has now dropped to 6 tenths, 7 tenths, and that's an amazing comeback. And there you have it. He's just under 7 tenths, and I'm sure down the straight, not too sure whether the Ferrari has the legs on the Mitsubishi, but we'll know very soon. But the gap seems to be equal, so the cars seem to be equal as well. This is an amazing race here, the AM Race 2, with Dasun Ranatunga in the lead and Dilan Sabah following closely in the last lap of this race. So there you have it, Dasun Ranatunga leads Dilan Sabah in the final bit of the race. We have him right on the tail of the Ferrari. I'm keeping it here, and Sachetana Patiran has gone into the pits. Don't tell me he ran out of fuel on the penultimate lap. That's such a shame. Anyways, I'm sure he knows what he's about. As Dilan Sabah comes all the way up, he's run out of fuel. His last bit of fuel there, I can see the light flashing in car number 1 and car number 2. Both cars have drained their tanks all the way. I hope that they don't have a situation where they run out of fuel. They've got just about under a kilometer or maybe a kilometer and a half to go, and I hope the light stays on, because if the light goes off means you've run out of fuel, you've cooked it. They are down to the last corner. They come out to that little straight, and we ride on board with Dilan Sabah and Dasun Ranatunga. They've come round the last corner onto the main straight, and both cars are running. It's a tight one, and Dasun Ranatunga seems to have got both ran out of fuel, but they rolled across the checkered flag as the Lambo of Akhil Rizvi comes in third, with Kevin Pereira, who's quite far behind, also in a silver situation. So these guys have run their cars so dry, as they're just getting over the start-finish line with only the fumes in their fuel tanks. And that's a great finish there, a clean race, as we come back in 10 minutes for the Pro Race 2. We're back, ladies and gentlemen, in the beautiful picturesque mountains of the east of France in a circuit called Alsace. It's actually not a real circuit, it's a fantasy circuit of Gran Turismo, but it's in the wonderful city of the village of Alsace, which is on the border of France and Germany. And going through the history of this track, I was told again by one of the drivers who's racing today that this part of France was an occupied territory in the early part of the century, and now we come here with Rise UM, who leads the pack. This circuit, which is 5.4 kilometers in length. The pole sitter was Brian Pereira. So, pole sitter was Brian Pereira. Second on the grid was Josefa, and Thiago Pereira has qualified third. Rise UM, Riaz and Viren start from the top three places by virtue of the fact that they are starting on a reverse grid, and we can see we can see Riaz Hafrat and Viren Boteju now having a ding-dong battle to take over the second slot, and Viren in the Subaru. Oh, there was a bit of a tap there. That was a naughty thing to do. That sent. That was not good. That little incident there sent Rise UM off the racing line, which gave advantage to Viren Boteju to take the slot. I'm sure the stewards are going to have an eye on that one. We've got Viren Boteju now being chased by the fast moving car, which is the Mercedes of Thiago. Unfortunately, Riaz had a coming together with the wall, and Josefa Jafarji followed Riaz into the wall as well. That may have slowed them down a bit, but nevertheless, this is a long track. We've got 12 laps to go, and let's see what the Mercedes is capable of doing. Again, it's all down to strategies and how you fuel yourselves. I'm sure Josefa and Brian are a little wiser now on this run. They may not run their cars as lean as they ran in the first race. They both ran out of fuel coming up to the start-finish line, and I saw a photo finish of the finish of the first race, and Thiago had won the race by not more than a quarter of a car, where he was a quarter of a car ahead of Josefa. And we were right on board with Brian and Josefa, as Josefa has got the better of Brian there. Let's see, these guys are the championship contenders 1 and 2, who are at the back of the pack, who need the points now to make sure that the other party takes on. I think Josefa leads the pack, followed by Brian, followed by Yevan. So that's the gap. I think it's 279 points into that Yevan has to 229 that Thiago has. So that's where it is, and everybody running now for the points. My friends here in race control are laughing at me. According to them, I've memorized the points table, and that's what a commentator is supposed to know. As we ride on board with Riaz Hafrat and Viren Boteju, still holding on to that bright blue Subaru. I mean, all due credit to him. He's really driving the socks off that car, and
holding on the mighty Mercedes. The Mercedes, it's like one of those cats waiting to pounce, but can't figure which time to do it. And I'm sure he's hassling Viren tremendously. Meanwhile, Huzaifa and Brian have managed to overtake Riaz and Rise. And Huzaifa taking a tighter line while Brian taking a slightly more adventurous line. I'm sure it didn't work because Huzaifa is taking a very tighter line. He's a smart cookie there because Brian, in an ideal world, should be faster, but he can't go round Huzaifa because he hasn't got the legs to go right round him. So it's just a matter of time. But if I look at the clock, all I see is that these two guys are slowing each other down. I mean, that's not really, in an ideal sense, it's not really something that is going to work for the two of them, but I'm sure they know what they're about because they are the championship leaders, and they didn't get to the top of the championship by scraping coconuts. So there you have it. You have the top two drivers, Huzaifa and Brian, but add to the mix is Riaz, who's also catching Brian. So it's going to be a trio of Porsches, and it will be very interesting to see out of these three guys who's going to blink first into a pit stop. As we ride on board with Thiago, again still hassling Viren, and Viren must be wondering at what point of time is Thiago going to either give up on him or just both of them going to the pits at the same time, and Riaz can or Viren can have a slight breather during that period. It's not easy. They're fighting tooth and nail here, and that Mercedes is also quite a bit of a big car to handle on a circuit like this. But if you look at the times, I have to give credit to both drivers. They're driving super clean. They're defending in the lines, but not being unsportsmanship in any way. So Viren takes a nicer line round that corner, pulls a slight gap to Thiago. Thiago taking a slightly more conservative line and trying to get the better of Viren, but Viren almost 3 times the age of Thiago, has a lot more experience than Thiago as well, and manages to hold station as well. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. One Subaru being chased by a Mercedes, and Thiago is the one to blink first. He's gone into the pits on lap 5, which means he's in for a 2-stop strategy for sure, as the other cars might run a single stop, and that would be a serious disadvantage for the mighty Mercedes. You never know. It'll be interesting to see, because if you look at the fuel gauges of the Porsches, they're clearly burning far less fuel than the Mercedes cars. Again, race 1 had 13 laps, which was an odd number, and that makes a bit of a change to the entire fuel strategy of all these drivers. So there you have it, the gap between 1 and 6 being almost 20 seconds. That's actually one pit stop away. It'll be interesting to see if Thiago can stretch his fuel tanks, which I doubt very much to finish. He's in the top order of the running today, but let's see. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what he can do. So there you have it, the leader of the pack, Viren Boteju. I hope he's got this right, because his fuel light is on, and he's got about 1.5 kilometers to go to the pits, and I hope and pray he's got his strategy right, because if he does run out of fuel, that will be an absolute disaster for him as he comes round just the penultimate corner and he can see the pit entrance in a little while. I hope he gets it right there, and he goes into the pits. And I'm breathing a sigh of relief for Viren at this point of time. I thought he had miscalculated that one, as the Porsche is clearly on a single stop strategy, and that's not going to play in well for the Mercedes and the Subaru. The Subaru might be able to pull it off, but the Mercedes for sure will have to come in for another pit stop. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is race 2 of the Pro race. We've got Huzaifa Jafaji, who is on at the moment on in grid 1, Brian Pereira on grid 2, Riaz Hafrat on grid 3, Thiago Pereira on grid 4. Thiago is 13 seconds away from Riaz, but he's got Rise UM on his tail. Rise is trying to hassle. Oh no, Rise has hit the grass, he's touched the grass and he spun off. That's an absolute shame, because Rise has to come into the pits anyway at the end of this lap. He would have been better off if he just held on and let Viren go, but I think he got pressured by Viren. Viren was quite far behind, so there was no contact there, but it was an unfortunate incident. I'm sure he must be kicking himself in this whole process. But again, here you see when Thiago went into the pits, he was behind Viren by maybe half to 3/4 of a second, and he's gone into the pits, come back, and he's about a second and a half ahead of Viren. And I'm wondering, is Thiago now on a little bit of a conservative run? Because from what I see, he's got to run a bit conservative to run it all the way to the end. Let's see, because the front runners have all gone into the pits. Where is Thiago? Thiago is quite far away from the pits. No, he is not. He's also coming in this way. And oh no, Viren hit the barrier there. And that must have slowed him down a little bit. I think his concentration got the better of him, as Thiago has managed. No, he'll have to come in for a pit stop again. His fuel tanks are at half and he's not going to make it to the finish. He'll have to come in for a pit stop. He's got to do one more stop before he finishes this race, and he must be on a charge to make himself stretch as much as he can between himself and the fast running Huzaifa and Brian. Well, let's see. This is going to be a race up to the wire. For my predictions, maybe I'm wrong. I think Thiago has to come in for another pit stop. Viren, maybe, I'm not too sure. Viren may be able to pull it off. I'm not too sure about that one. But for sure, the Porsches are going to have it all the way to the finish. And in one run, they'll be all the way there. So great driving by all the drivers here. And as I said earlier, the standard of driving has seriously improved. Thiago Pereira, big hassled by Viren Boteju. Viren, a driver who's got an immense amount of energy. He's right on the tail of Thiago. Thiago blocking Viren at every point of time. And there you have it. Oh, there was a contact there. There was contact there, but that no harm. Maybe he gave Thiago a bit of a bump and said, hey, move or go faster. And we wait to see what exactly takes place. And Viren there got the better of Thiago. I think he outsmarted him into a corner. I'm not too sure if there was whether there was anything in that, but I don't think so. It looked pretty clean. And Viren is now pulling away from Thiago. Thiago is on a bit of a conservative run, I guess. But in my opinion, both these drivers might have to come in for a splash and dash. Not too sure how much of fuel these two guys have, and how far behind Huzaifa is. So it'll be interesting to see how this thing pans out. This is a long circuit, 5.4 kilometers, and you can see the fast-moving Huzaifa catching these guys as they go on, because he knows he's got enough and more fuel. His tires are fresher. Brian is almost 3 seconds away from him. No real challenge. So it's going to be down to the wire, because between 1, 2, 3, and 4, there's a lot to go there. So let's see how it works. Riaz again having enough fuel, and it'll be interesting to see what strategy plays out here. From my opinion, I feel that Thiago has to come into the pits, and so will Viren. Viren too is going to be on a very tight call if he tries to do this on a single stop. It's going to be impossible, because both cars, yes, there you have it, Thiago dives in. He had to do that, because if he didn't do that, he'd have been either run out of fuel, or he'd have been running minus a tire or two. So there you go. Thiago's in the pits, and I'm sure Viren, if he's smart, he will also have to come in for his tires, because he's going to lose a lot of time to Huzaifa, because that Subaru is not going to handle very well now on. These guys, I know by driving the Mercedes, the tire wear, because of the weight of the car and how much of brake pressure you have to use, the front wheels really get a beating. So the cars are really fast, it's really quick, but tire management is impossible. And as you see Viren snaking around, smart man, I'm sure he will have to come blink now, and Thiago on the fresher tires might be able to pull that gap and jump Viren in the pits. So the only saving grace for Viren will be if he can fuel himself a little less than what Viren will have to. But this is a long circuit, and if your tires are bleeding, you're going to lose time on the track, as opposed to the amount of time you lose in the fueling. So Viren ideally should have come into the pits in the last lap, and got a set of fresh rubber, got just enough fuel to finish the run. So there you have it. Thiago is now 5th, Riaz is 4th, Brian 3rd, and Huzaifa is in 2nd. Huzaifa should be a little more, ideally should have come into the pits in the last lap. So there you have it. Viren comes in for his rubber. I hope he fuels in just enough and not too much. Yes, and Viren is still stationary. It's going to be a very close call between Viren and Thiago. It's going to be Thiago has overtaken him in the pits, and the gap now is, whoa, that was really close, as Viren came out of the pits straight into the line of Thiago, and Thiago didn't see him come, I guess, and that was very, very close. Let's see what these guys are going to be up to, and that's wonderful racing there. Wonderful racing, and it's an amazing how these two cars are performing on such a tough circuit. So there you have it. Viren trying everything he has and knows against Thiago, as we ride on board with Riaz. Riaz too, having had his share of fuel. Brian has enough fuel as well, and Huzaifa. All these guys in the front are running extremely well, as the gap between Viren and Riaz is 16 seconds. So I don't see anybody coming in for the pits anymore. This, unless something really drastic happens, this is the way the race is going to finish. As we ride on board again with Viren keeping the car absolutely broad as he possibly can, to make sure that Thiago doesn't creep in from some little nook or crevice and try to overtake him somewhere. The gap now, whoops, that was a bad one from Thiago. He's almost lost it. And I know it's not easy, and he's dropped a whole second to Viren. That's okay. His races are not finished till the checkered flag comes out, and he's now dropped a good second and a half to Viren. So there you have it. This is the Pro Race 2 of the CMSC Pro-Am Championship, round 9, brought to you by Mobitel and Sri Lanka Telecom with our partners Demo 800. Right now, we've 1.5 laps to go. We have Huzaifa Jafaji leading Brian Pereira and followed by Riaz Hafrat. In 4th place is Viren Boteju, and in 5th place is Thiago Pereira, followed by Rais Uem. Amazing racing here. The fastest lap has been set by Brian Pereira, 1 minute 52.557, which is again something that he's going to get points for. A great drive by all these guys as Viren slowly starts pulling away from Thiago. This is great racing by everybody. There's no real challenge, but from what I see, there's something interesting happening here. We have a lap and a half to go, and Viren has brought the gap down by 5 seconds to Riaz. Now, is there going to be a fight for 3rd place? It's very interesting because the gap between Brian and Riaz earlier was 3 seconds, and now it's dropped down to 7 seconds, and the gap between Riaz and Viren has dropped to 4, which means Riaz is either having to conserve his fuel and his tires, and in the process you can see a blue car right in his background. So we've got a lap to go, and a fast charging Viren with fresher rubber, more fuel, and nothing to lose in the whole game. There you have it. This is what it's all about. Riaz has dropped down to under 4 seconds now, with Viren catching him a 10th and a half in each corner. So it's just a matter of time when Viren catches Riaz. So that's again another cat among the pigeons, and you want to see there's no real fight between 1 and 2, but there is a fight brewing between 3 and 4. Interesting. And we have another situation here, ladies and gentlemen. Riaz Hafrat is running very, very low on fuel, and I think he has made a mistake in the whole process. I think he's made a mistake in his timing of the fuel of the pit stop, and if my experience serves me right, he might not make it to the finish line. He's turned his power down. He's changing. You can see he's off throttle most of the time. He's coasting the car. He's not even throttling at all at certain points. He's not even giving the throttle is not even getting up to half, which means he is absolutely on a fuel save mode there. Yes, and he's got a little bit more to go. He must be hoping that every part of this track from now is a downhill so that he can get down to this thing. And you can see he's not even throttling. He's just letting the car coast downhill. Great driving by him. Great driving by all, as Riaz Hafrat manages to come just across the finish line about now, as he gets 3rd place from a fast charging Viren. So Huzaifa, congratulations to him. Brian Pereira 2nd, Riaz Hafrat 3rd, Viren Boteju 4th, Thiago Pereira 5th, and Rais Uem is 6th. We'll be back with you with AM Race 2. AM2 Race 2. We're back for AM2 Race 2, which is now just about to begin with again Adisha Kitwith starting on pole. Dasun Ranatunga got the fastest time for the day today, with Dilan Saba following him very closely, and Kevin Pereira in third place. That was the order of the qualifying. With the reverse grid order now, we have Adisha Kitwith in grid 1 under starters orders. So Dasun Ranatunga, Dilan Saba, Kevin Pereira, Akil Rizni, Sachetana Patrana, Shamik Kamage, Imesh Silva and Adisha Kitwith were the where the qualifying ended. And on the reverse grid, the exact opposite happened, and Dasun starts at the back and Adisha starts from the front. This is a very, very long race, 5.4 kilometers in Lassat in the east of France, as we wait to see how these cars are going to pan over 12 laps. This is the AM2 Race 2 of the CMSC Pro-Am Championship. we're back again, 3 laps down. Adisha Kitwith is still leading the pack with Dilan Sabha, Kevin Pereira, Imesh Silva and Sachetana Patina all breathing down each other's throat. And it's a wonderful thing to see that from 1 all the way down to 6, the cars are running very close to each other. Sachetana Patirana unfortunately has had a bit of an off and he's got a 1.7 second penalty, but that's okay. I'm sure this is a long race. We are running almost 70 kilometers, 65 kilometers I think this race, and we are only down to about 15 and a half to 17 kilometers so far. So there you have it, Imesh Silva in the beautiful Mitsubishi Evolution with the Damika Motors branding on it, followed by Akhil Rizvi with Nestle sponsored Milo branding on it, and Dasun Ranatunga, not too sure exactly who's sponsoring him, but we see the beautiful Mobitel and Sri Lanka Telecom logo on the car along with the Demo 800. So Dasun all the way at the back and has a bit of a fight on his hands. He's got to go up the pecking order and catch up with all the other boys in front. So Shamik Gamage in the big M4. Sam, that's an M4 by the way. My co-commentator Sam believed that I was wrong, but that's an M4. I was trying to explain to him about these BMWs which he drives, and a lot of understeer on that car. I wonder whether Sachetana or Shami Gamage is turning in the car properly, because I saw the car having a lot of understeer. Very strange, and that's allowing Sachetana Patirana to catch up. So Dilan Sabha, great boy. He's got a 2:01 as the fastest time achieved so far. Dasun Ranatunga by himself is 11 seconds away from the lead pack. And that's very strange for us to see Dasun, because Dasun is a guy who comes from the back all the way to the front and will give the boys in front a run for their money. Meanwhile, we have Akhil Rizvi driving all the way, sitting in Switzerland. And I'm told by Sam that Akhil works for Nestle's. And I presume that's how the Milo branding comes on it. Imesh Silva in 4th place. And he's being hounded by Akhil Rizvi. This is an amazing track. It's in Lassat in France. It's a little village, as you see the signboard there saying Lassat village. This is actually a fantasy track. It's not a real track in the world. It's a track created by Gran Turismo for specific motorsport. As we find Imesh Silva, very unfortunate, all by himself, runs totally off the racing line wide, and that gives Akhil Rizvi a chance to catch him and overtake him. That's all that Akhil Rizvi was waiting for. And again, Imesh runs wide. I mean, the pressure is mounting on these boys as they race, as Adisha Kitwith has gone into the pits. Very smart move on his part. He's managed to go in for a fresh set of rubber. I presume that Adisha Kitwith is on a 2-stop strategy. Meanwhile, Dilan Sabha, way up in front in the yellow Launchpad branded Mitsubishi Evolution, is all by himself, 6 seconds away from Kevin Pereira. And that's a huge margin that he has created in a short span of 5 laps. So there you have it. Dilan Sabha leads the pack, and he's ever increasing his lead in this whole game from 6 to 7.2 seconds, which means that Dilan has this thing very comfortably packed in the bag. Dilan Sabha 7.2 seconds ahead of Kevin Pereira, who's 1.1 seconds ahead of Akhil Rizvi, and Dasun Ranatunga now slowly creeping up from the back, and is just 2.5 seconds away. So we'll ride on board with Akhil Rizvi, and there you see the internal, see all the views of the car, and I'm asking Sam, who's in charge of the technical stuff, to give us in-car footage of what it looks like from within the car. There you see how Akhil Rizvi sees it from his perspective of an in-car footage of the car and his driving style. You can see him on 4th, 5th, running slightly a little too wide. Car doing a speed of 100 and almost 200 miles an hour and sliding a little bit. This is real footage of how things are going to happen. This is exactly how Akhil sees from his driving console. So you have it, speed on one side, the RPM gauge on the other side. You can see his fingers moving to change gears. It's a paddle shift, gear shift in these cars. And you can see his last lap time being 2:03 and the gap. You can see his engine mapping is on 2. That means he's not really giving it all the fuel he has, because the engine mapping 1 would be maximum power, engine mapping 2 would be slightly conservative. He's also running no traction control and his anti-lock braking system is completely off as well. You can see ABS off, traction control off. So this is absolutely amazing driving, because he's taken off all the aids in this car and driving it purely on what it is. So his throttle and his brake response has to be perfect, because he's got no anti-lock braking, he's got no traction control. So if you throttle it too much, you're going to have the car spinning around you. If you brake too hard, it's going to lock up and go straight. So there you have it. We were riding with Akhil Rizvi, and that's a beautiful view from there. Let me take you on to ride on board with Kevin Pereira. Kevin must be also in a similar situation. You can see what his car looks like. See, the dashboard is all different in his car. It hasn't got all the information that we saw with Akhil. And if you look at the mirror on top, you'll see the green Lamborghini hassling him all the way as Kevin Pereira tries his level best to stay on the inside there. RPM gauge showing 6,500, 4th gear, 200 kilometers an hour, 210. And then he comes into the braking zone. Last lap being a 203.9 as being his fastest lap. And he's on a roll. He's on a roll, and he's in the pits, almost hit the pit wall there as he came in there. And we'll ride again with somebody else who's outside there. Imesh Silva is in the pits as well. And we go up to Akhil Rizvi, who's in P2. Let's see who comes in and out of the pits first. So there you have it. Dilan Sabah is the one who came out earliest. Akhil has come out 3rd. And the gap between Dilan Sabah and Akhil Rizvi has now dropped or increased to 8.9. And Kevin Pereira, who was ahead of Akhil Rizvi, has come out with a almost a 3-second gap between himself and Kevin. So Akhil has done a bit of a jump on Kevin in the pits itself, and now must be on a roll to catch hold of Dilan Sabah. Dasun Ranatunga, meanwhile, is having a bit of a tough race today, as he's on the tail of Kevin Pereira. And there you have it. That's how you saw Dasun Ranatunga overtake Kevin Pereira, and now he is chasing Akhil Rizvi. It'll be very interesting to see how these two cars perform. The Ferrari of Dasun Ranatunga chasing the Lamborghini of Akhil Rizvi. Dasun is an amazing driver. Again, you can see his car giving all the telemetry on the screen. It shows that he's running at 210 kilometers an hour on 4th gear, and he's on a fuel mapping of 1, which means he's using max power, which explains how he's catching the other car. The wattage is the electricity. The oil temperature is at 85, and the 230 I think is the water temperature. Yes, that is the water temperature. And it's amazing how hot these cars are running. The traction control is off, ABS is off, and fuel mapping on 1. That's how you see it. Again, he has no real advantage which has been gained by Dasun on Akil. So Akil Rizvi as well is running a fantastic race as we ride on board with Akil Rizvi as well. So there you have it. Let's change it to a different view, Sam, so that we see the car from the outside, and that's how you see Akil Rizvi. The gap has increased to 10 seconds now, as Dilan Sabah has clearly got this one in the bag. I'm sure he's practiced this track extremely well and knows exactly how that Mitsubishi Evolution is going to handle Launchpad. Must be extremely happy with his performance. And as Dilan Sabah catches Adisha Kitwit, who ran extremely wide, and I'm sure Adisha also has seen the better days in his tires, and car is running wide. He needs to come into the pits not for fuel but for tires, because that Volkswagen has seen, the tires have seen better days. And Dilan Sabah just pacing behind Adisha Kitwit, and as Adisha runs wide, I knew that was going to happen because his tires are gone. He's got nothing much left in them. He's trying very hard. That was contact, and that was unnecessary by Adisha Kitwit, because Dilan Sabah passed him clean and nicely. So there you have it. There was no disadvantage to Dilan Sabah. Dilan Sabah didn't lose out, thank God. Otherwise, there would have been an inquiry into that, but that was an unnecessary move. Contact is not essential, and realistically speaking, there's no one is really quick in this. Nobody is really close to each other in this race. So Dilan Sabah leads the pack with Akil Rizvi is now almost 8.5 seconds. He's on a roll. Dasun Ranatunga hasn't really made much of an impression on Akil Rizvi. As we ride on board, they've got enough fuel in this car. How's Dilan Sabah doing? Dilan Sabah's got enough fuel as well. So these guys are going to be running to the finish, but they will be running with adequate fuel. So there you have it. Dilan Sabah, who's now leading the pack, Akil Rizvi in second, and Dasun Ranatunga in third. As we still see Dilan Sabah being chased by Akil Rizvi, Dasun Ranatunga in the Ferrari still trying to pace himself. Kevin Pereira too, having come out of the pits, is now being chased by Adisha Kitwit. Adisha having the fresher rubber of the two cars. We'll see how exactly that pans out. We don't see any of the others very close.
and Adisha getting very close now to Kevin Pereira. I'm wondering if there's a bit of gamesmanship here, because is Adisha and is Kevin, are they on a fuel conservation mode? I don't know. They've got 2 laps more, and I have a feeling that Kevin may have to go a little easy on the fuel, because his car is running a bit on the slower side. His lap times have dropped a little bit from what it should be. He's been running a little faster, but right now he's running a little slower. That gives me the impression that he's on a fuel conservation as well. And Kevin's front tires have also got quite a bit of wear on it. So there you have it. We've got Kevin Pereira, and he's managed to pull a bit of a lead. He may have heard me speak about the gap between himself and Adisha Kidwin, and now he's managed to pull a lead between himself and Adisha Kidwin. So you have it there. That is the gap between Dasun Ranatunga and Akhil Risni has now dropped to 2.7 seconds. Do you think we're gonna? Not too sure whether we'll see this gap reducing any further, but I have to say that anything can happen in this race. There's 2 laps more to go, 1.5 laps more to go. Both drivers have got quite a bit of tyre wear in their fronts, and that's down to the very fast corners that this track has. They've got a lot of banked corners, which takes a lot of the out of the tyres, and you got to balance the brakes pretty much well. And I think the brake bias makes a huge impact on your tyre wear on these corners as well. It's how you brake into the corners and the weight transfer that might happen in this whole process that also has a bearing on the tyres. It may be e-sport, but these things do have a bearing on the performance of your car in respect to the wear and tear. So there you have it. Dasun Ranatunga 2.7 seconds. He's made about a second up on Akhil Risni. Akhil must be seeing the gap in his data sheet which comes on his screen, and he knows the gap between himself and Dasun. So interesting times, interesting places, and we wait to see how it works. Meanwhile, Dilan Sabah is the unchallenged driver who's in front in the start today. He has clearly stamped his authority today, and that yellow color Mitsubishi Evolution is a country mile away as we go around to the last lap, as Dilan Sabah passes the start finish line and he gets the flag informing him that he's on his last lap. Let us ride on board with Dilan Sabah to see he's got it in the bag. If he can keep this strap together, he's home and away, because he's got enough fuel as well. That car sitting very beautifully. I'm not too sure what exactly the whole story is. He's got a branding at the back of his car saying, "Sorry, we are closed." I'm not too sure whether he means his boot is closed or whether that's some other kind of branding, but Launchpad for sure is one of his sponsors. As you see him carrying the Mobitel and Sri Lanka Telecom branding on the car. This championship is sponsored by Mobitel and Sri Lanka Telecom, along with our partners Demo 800, the franchisees for Mercedes-Benz. We are coming to you live from the X station of Mobitel, which is down in Duplication Road, as they are the sponsors as well as the providers of all our internet. And I have to tell you that if you are a gamer, if you are into any kind of esports, or for that matter even in your offices, the speed and the reliability of Mobitel and their internet is fantastic. We've been running a championship over the years or over the months, and we haven't had a single time where we've had a problem with the internet. So hats off to Mobitel, and we thank them for all their support promoting e-sport in times when there's no other motor racing happening. As we see Dilan Sabah coming down the start finish straight, just about to take the checkered flag from
the start finish line. I'm not too sure who the starter is today and who's waving the flag, but clearly Dilan Sabah takes it all the way there from Akil Rizni as he takes the flag. Dasun Ranatunga as he passes the the finished area. Kevin Pereira in fourth place. Adisha Kitwit was almost taking him. I'm sure Kevin ran out of fuel. Yes, Kevin has run out of fuel. Imesh, as I predicted earlier, Kevin did have to go on a bit of a conservation run, and Sachayatana Patirana, who's now coming round quite far behind, he's got a bit of a distance to go, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of AM2 race 2, and we'll see you back in 15 minutes when we run the final race of the day, which is the CMSC AM1 race 2 at Lasats. And we're back. We're back in Lesat for AM1 race 2, which is the final race of the day. We've got Inuk Matumarachi driving his customary Nissan GTR in pole. There's been no qualifying, so he's not done a qualifying session. Shami Alvis has set the fastest lap today with Mevan Pereira in the second slot, Sam Smith third, Adam Junaid fourth, Emdad fifth, and Inuk Matumarachi sixth. As we start now, we have Inuk leading the pack, the two GTRs leading the way into the first corner. It will be interesting to see how the two cars perform. Oh dear, there's a bit of a bad one where Emdad ran a bit too wide and was taken by Adam Junaid, and we have the two Porsches breathing down, one on his left, one on his right. I'm sorry, it's not a Porsche, it's the Jag and the Porsche. So within the first few corners, Emdad has gone from hero all the way down to 5. But it's a long race. It's a 5.4 kilometer track and 17 corners. It's a long circuit. We've got running about 70 kilometers here in total today, and it can be anybody's call all the way. So let's see how this thing pans out as Shami Alvis comes parallel with Emdad. Emdad now getting into a bit of a rhythm and managing to get the better of Sam Smith, and coming back into fourth. Inuk still in front, leading the pack as Emdad manages to get the better of Shami. Shami now takes the inside line, tries to have a look down the inside, tries to get the drive out of the corner, but Emdad has none of it. He closes the door as Sam Smith goes on the inside. That's a bit of a compromised line there. He's going to compromise his speed. Shami tries to go on the other side of Emdad, manages to pull a nice blind run on the inside as Inuk still leads the pack from Adam. Adam breathing down Inuk. We go down. Oh, oops, there's been a bit of a and there's been a bit of an incident in lap 1. There's been a bit of contact between Shami Alvis and Emdad Hussain as Mevan Pereira now breathes down the inside of Adam. Adam now having to fend off a car in front, car at the back, and there's quite a bit of contact in this race. I must say it's quite unlike the AM2 race, which there was no contact. There's 4 cars abreast running into the start finish line. There's Inuk trying to guard the inside, but he couldn't. There are 4 cars. I really don't know who's in front. Mevan Pereira seems to be in front. Shami Alvis is second, and Adam Junaid third. So there you have it. The Jaguar of the F-Pace, the F-Type of Mevan Pereira, now in the lead as Adam tries to get the better of Shami. Shami and Adam driving identical cars, so it's all down to each one's driving style. We wait to see where this whole thing pans out. And there's been an incident, I'm told, between Emdad and Shami in the first corner, or in the first bit of the first lap. So the stewards are going to inquire into that. Let's see how that works out. as Mevan tries to run away and Adam tries to catch him, and Shami is right on his tail. Everybody running a different strategy. Shami right on the inside of Mevan. Mevan closes the door and says, "No, sir, not there." And in the process, Adam is watching from his third slot. So interesting times as Shami takes the inside line, compromises, and maybe there was a little bit of contact there. Yes, and I'm sure the stewards will look at that, where Shami and Mevan had a bit of coming together on lap 1 or lap 2. I'm sorry. And that gave enough space for Adam to take the slot. So there's a lot of argy-bargy going on in this race. Unlike the other ones, there's everybody is trying to get the better of the other. 2, 3, 4, 5 are all together, and there's quite a bit of racing. I'm surprised that there's this much of contact, because this track is a very, very wide circuit. And there's enough space for everyone, there's enough room, and into most corners you could take 2 separate lines, 2 separate apexes, and then get the better of the other person. So there you have it. Inuk Madhumarachi now having a little bit of bumper rubbing with Shami Alvis, but Shami having the better of it. The GTR, a much bigger car, as we'll ride down with Shami to see what exactly happens there. There are 3 cars running there, and Inuk is now being challenged by Sam Smith. So there you have it. Inuk has now fallen down to 5th, but a very close 5th, because everybody in the bunch between 2 and 5 are all running very close to each other. As we ride with Shami, and then we have Inuk, who has got the better of Sam Smith again, and we wait to see how that's going to work out, because this car is a very big car on a very long circuit, and the tyre wear and fuel consumption will be playing a very big role on this circuit. So there you have it. We have Adam still leading the pack. We've forgotten about him because he managed to pull away at that initial little bit of contact that happened, and 1, 2 and 3 are evenly spaced out from what I see. But Adam, a little 10-year-old who's into rallying as well and has been performing extremely well, as he's being challenged by Mevan Pereira, who's go-kart and is now coming into esport. I'm not too sure whether Mevan is in Sri Lanka, but between the 3 brothers, Mevan, Brian and Mevan, Brian and Kevin. Mevan is in Sri Lanka, Kevin is in the USA, and Brian is in Australia. So the 3 brothers racing from 3 different parts of the world, but taking part in a CMSC Pro-Am Championship, which is brought to you by Mobitel and Sri Lanka Telecom, along with our motorsporting partner Demo, the franchisees of Mercedes-Benz. So Mevan Pereira now trying to run away with this whole thing from Shami, and Shami trying to go around the outside. In the process, Adam, who was leading, has now fallen into 3rd place. So that this is a lot like what we would call, like in MotoGP, the lead changing many times over, and that's what it's all about. That's where the interesting part of the whole story is, as Shami tails Mevan into the first corner, into the 5th corner, and Adam following and running a little wide, getting a little hairy on that, as Sam Smith has had an incident now and hit the barriers, as Inuk comes along and takes that place from Sam. Sam has gone off all by himself from what we see, because he had a great lead over Inuk, and Inuk has got the better of him. Emdad Hussain is now 3.9 seconds ahead or behind Sam Smith. So as a big gap between the gap between 3 and 4 has now dropped to 8.5 seconds. So as you see, 2 trains of cars there, 1, 2 and 3 running close to each other, 4, 5 and 6 running closer to each other. So that's it. As you see it, we have 1 and 2 still battling it out, and this 12-lap race. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mevan Pereira leads the AM1 race 2 from Shami Alvis by half a second, and Adam Junaid is trailing the first and second drivers by just 3 seconds. We are into lap 4, which is out of 12, and that's almost 35% of the race gone. We're running a little ahead of schedule, but that's all good, because everybody wants to finish early and be home in time for the Formula 1, which is taking place today. Still, we have Shami Alvis right on the tail of Brian Pereira, and we'll go around to Inuk and Sam Smith. Sam following Inuk now, and Inuk managing to hold Sam at bay. Sam struggling a little bit. I'm sure the Porsche doesn't have the legs on the GTR, but he's managed to come parallel quite a few times, and the fight is really good. And I'm sure Inuk is watching his mirrors and wondering which way that the Porsche is going to come round. Sam pulls onto the left onto the right, tries to see which way he can go, but Inuk is having none of it. He's just staying put in the middle of the circuit and making sure nobody goes anywhere. This is interesting racing. This is e-sport and a race from home challenge or championship. There's a little bit of contact between Inuk and Sam, but again, no real damage done to either party as we go down into lap 5 of 12. Back up in front, Mevan seems to have lost the lead to Shami Alvis, and Shami has now pulled a lead of 1.2 seconds from Mevan Pereira. Adam has dropped from 2 seconds down to 5.5 seconds, and I'm sure he's on a different strategy. He's also might need to come into the pits very soon. Yes, he has, as Mevan and Shami both have come into the pits for their mandatory or required pit stop. So this looks like a two-stop strategy for Shami Alvis, Adam Junaid and Inuk Madhumarachi, as Mevan Pereira and Sam Smith are already out on track, and they've not had a pit stop. So that's what a pit stop looks like. We ride on board with Inuk Madhumarachi as his car is fueled, tires changed, and he comes out just behind Emdad Hussain, who is now in 5th place. So Emdad has had a bit of a bad day. This is his first time on this track in this car with us, but I'm sure he'll figure this one out. He's a really good driver. He's raced the Formula Fords in Sri Lanka, he's raced the Hondas in Sri Lanka, and he's done a lot of circuit racing as well as rallying. He's a good driver, he's a safe pair of hands, and once he does get his act together, he will know exactly how to handle this car. It's a very big car. The GTRs now at the back of the pack, 2 GTRs, one following the other, one already having fresher rubber and the other one needing fresh rubber very soon. As we ride on board with Adam Junaid, Adam having done a pit stop, must be his first of 2, as he runs wide all by himself, a little bit of carrying too much speed into the corner. I'm sure Father Shafraz Junaid sitting right next to him must be guiding him along on this one, and Sam Smith, who has not done a pit stop, is sure to come into the pits in this lap, more for the requirement of fuel and less for the requirement of tires. Shami Alvis has done his pit stop and finished, and Mevan Pereira is now coming very close to a pit stop window, and I think he has decided to run one more lap and then come in. His last pit stop will be very short because he'd have run so much that he'll have to take in very less fuel, but his tires have seen way better days. Again, looking at the lap times that Mevan is getting, he's not doing too badly. He's done a fastest is 2 minute 4, and his last lap is a 2 minute 6. in comparison to Shami Alvis, who's actually 6 seconds faster on that last lap. So that goes to show how much of time Mevan Pereira is losing to Shami Alvis with his bad tires. I think Mevan has made a very poor decision on this one. He should have gone into the pits in the last lap. Because of his decision to stay out one more lap, he's losing a lot of time to Shami in the pit stop strategy. So Shami, I think, has gained almost 10 seconds by pitting a one lap earlier and getting fresher rubber. That's not a good thing ideally for Mevan, because Mevan has dropped his pace to such a level that if he goes into the pits and comes, he might not get his first place, he might not get his second, he might end up even closer to a third. So he'll be coming out second, but a very late second, and he'll be very, very close to Adam, as Adam has already done his pit stop. Mevan is going to come out very, very far down, and I can see him coasting along. His tires have seen better days. There's no grip left in that car, and from a 17-second gap, it's dropped all the way down to 6 seconds, and he's got another 2 corners to go before he gets to the pits, and his fuel light is also on its last leg. So interesting times to see where exactly Mevan will come. We'll hang in there with Mevan as he goes into the pits for his mandatory stop, and we wait to see what exactly he's going to do. I'm sure his pit stop will be short because he will need less fuel. It's only 5 laps more. He'll take on less fuel, but nevertheless his gap to Shami Alvis is going to be considerable. He's not going to make that kind of time very easily. As he comes out, we wait to see his case. He's come out just ahead of Adam. As I predicted, he'll come out just ahead of Adam, but he's 17 seconds away from Shami. He was actually leading this race by just 1.5 seconds, and that decision to hang on for an extra lap has really hurt his lap times. So there you have it. As I said earlier, Shami Alvis is clocking in the 2-minute 2-second region, and he's done a quick lap of a 2-minute flat, which is very, very fast for that category of car. And Shami has pulled out a blinding run and got the better of everybody else here. So there you have it. Shami Alvis leads Mevan Pereira by 17 seconds purely because he had a far better strategy of pitting one lap before everybody else. Now the question will be, does Shami Alvis have the fuel to come all the way to the finish? That's going to be a very interesting point, because between Shami Alvis and Adam Junaid, they've already run through half tank of fuel. They've got almost 25 kilometers to go, which is almost 4 and a little bit more and a half laps. And both these drivers are running with a half tank of fuel, as Mevan has a full tank of fuel. So we might see Shami having to coast in the last bits of the race, but certainly he's got a cushion of 17 seconds between himself and the second placed Mevan Pereira. So ladies and gentlemen, this will be interesting to see who is going to have better control of their fuel strategy on these laps. Mevan Pereira still clocking a time of 2 minutes 2s, which is matching Shami Alvis on circuit. So interesting to see where we end up. We will see how it pans out, as Adam has reduced his gap to Mevan Pereira to 7 seconds. Again, Adam too might need to come in for fuel. It all depends on how much he conserves. He might be able to pull it off because he's got a 10-second gap to Sam. Sam Smith is also a very good driver. Sam must be conserving his fuel. He's got enough and more fuel there, so he can push it. I'm sure he's running on a very good strategy for fuel mapping as well. But he's got a 10-second window between himself and Adam. So even if Adam does decide to coast a lap or two, he's not going to lose too much of time to Sam. We ride on board with Inuk, and something has happened between Inuk and Emdad, because the gap has gone from just under 2 seconds to 19 seconds. I think Emdad had a pit strategy which was slightly different as well. I'm sure he'll learn from it and come back fighting in our final round, take part in this championship. So we ride again with Sam. These drivers all running in a pretty spaced out manner. There's no one too close to each other. There's not too much competition or fighting amongst each other like what we saw in the last race. It was a race to the wire kind of thing in the AM2 race. It'll be interesting to see one of these days when we run all the AMs in one class, or all the drivers in one class, to see who performs where, because these drivers have seriously matured over the weeks and months that we've been running this thing. Again, contrary to what I thought, Shami has managed to pull another 1.5 seconds off from Mevan. So Mevan, having the fresher rubber of the two, has still not managed to really break into the times that Shami Alvis is clocking. Shami Alvis's times have all been very consistent in the 2 minute 2 seconds, and if you look at his lap times, they are all within a couple of tenths of each other. So that is a testament to how disciplined he's driving, as opposed to Mevan, who's a little, his lap times, if you look at the lap times on the right side of your screen, you see the disparity in the times: 203, 202, 206, 205, 205, 204. So the driving has been good, but it has a lot more improvement, because his timing should be pretty much on the same second. You can be a couple of tenths this way, that way, but when you got your disciplines right, you should be running in the same within a couple of tenths of each second. So there you have it. That's the prediction from my end. And Adam has dropped now down by another 3 seconds and dropped 13 seconds. And Sam has caught a couple of seconds off Adam. Maybe that Adam is on a fuel conservation. He's got 3 laps to go, or 2 laps to go, and he has to do another pit stop. So strategy there has not really worked right. And we will see Adam diving into the pits at the end of this lap, whereas Sam will clearly run all the way to the wire with the fuel that he has on board. Inuk might be able to pull it off to the finish as well, so the only other person who has to go into the pits will be Adam, and I guess Shami too should be okay. So Adam has to go into the pits, and we'll see him diving right now, and he'll go into the pits and come out. There again, Adam has lost a little bit of time in this process of pits, and he is going to come out a little bit. He'll come out just ahead of Inuk. He will come out ahead of Inuk, but it will be very close. As you ride on board with Inuk, we will see where Adam comes out. Adam has come out. I think he's fueled only a little bit of fuel, just enough for him to come to see the checkered flag. And Adam is just 4 seconds away from Sam. I wonder whether Adam is on a fight to run to the end and catch hold of Sam by his collar, but Sam is pretty comfortable in 3rd place, and he's got it there. And Adam is catching Sam, but I think it's a little too late. It's definitely a bit too late, but it's all fair. Let's see. It's interesting that Adam and Shami are running the same car, but their fuel strategies have been completely different. So both have had similar fuel strategies. Shami, I think, I can't quite remember, but Shami, I know, did the single stopper, and he's just about to come round to the start finish area, which will be his penultimate time seeing this part of the track, as the final lap board comes out at the start finish straight into the first corner. Tight left-hander, very tight. Second gear into third, into fourth, and maybe into fifth a little way down the line. Yes, and then over the mount into a little left-hander, uphill again here, and then a very sharp right-hander, which is downhill, and into the sharp right-hander. It's a slightly cambered corner into a short straight, and again into a very long sweeping left-hander, and then you'll see the timing beam come up just about now. There you have it, 43 seconds up to that point, and a 90-degree right, sharp braking. You have to take a lot of curb on the outside, on the inside, and let it run wide, unwind the car. The rotation of the car is very important here. Flat out right-hander into over the crest and downhill into a very tight second gear right-hander. Again, it's a nice track, very flowing. Les Arts in the east of France, 5.4 kilometers, and as you go right round this long right-hander, the second of the timing beams will come up shortly, as we'll know how fast he's been running. There you have it, 1:24. He's 2.2 seconds off his usual pace. He has run out, or he's managed to keep all the fuel he has. He's coasting along. As I mentioned earlier, he's run it perfectly. He's only down 14 seconds. He's taking it very easy. Last couple of corners into a tight right-hander over a left-hander, and then into the start-finish straight. That is the final bit of Les Arts in France, as we come to the closing end of the CMSC Pro-Am Championship. This is M1 Race 2, brought to you by Mobitel and Sri Lanka Telecom, with our motorsporting partner Demo, the franchisees of Mercedes-Benz. Mevan Pereira comes past the finish line 15 seconds behind Shami Alves, and Adam Junaid comes along again coasting and he's taken Sam. He has taken Sam somewhere down the line. Amazing drive by Adam. 1.5 laps, 4 seconds to go, and Adam has caught hold of Sam, overtaken him and regained third place, and Sam there comes fourth. That is great driving by Adam, because he did a two-stop strategy and that worked for him, as Sam too has come to the end of his fuel. The two GTRs are now coming over the last bit of the track, quite far down, 1 minute and 10 seconds away from the leader. Yet for all, they get classified as 5th, and Emdad Hussein comes in 6th place. So that's it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us as we ride on board our last driver, Emdad. He's 1 minute 42 seconds away from the leaderboard, and we ride on board with him. Emdad, I'm sure, has had a good time driving, and we wish all our drivers, and we congratulate our winners, and we come back to you on December 13th for the final round of the CMSC Pro-Am Championship, brought to you by Mobitel and Sri Lanka Telecom, along with our motor racing partner Demo, the franchisees of Mercedes-Benz.